right, this is sixth grade health, your last video lesson of sixth grade science. Continuing on talking about drugs, and I want to continue um, reviewing, first of all, this chapter and last a little bit. Remember, we talked about ears. That term would be auditory, eyes, optical, nose, olfactory, and we talked about the other. Remember that drugs are substances other than food and water taken into the body, which can affect your body, mind, and behavior. And you've got a written prescription from a doctor for medicine, or you can have over the counter, or you can just get it at CVS or Walgreens, something like that. The first ever antibiotic was penicillin, and antibiotics, of course, destroy or stop the growth of bacteria, whereas sulfa drugs I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Antibiotics destroy bacteria. They destroyed them. And sulfa drugs stop the growth of bacteria. And so drugs could be abused or misused, intentionally using them for non-medical purposes. Or you could develop tolerance, which your body is just needing more and more of the same medicine in order to get the desired effect. And you could also have dependence, which is the same word for addiction, where your body has to have it in order to be able to function properly, and it feels like it needs it. It feels like it has to have it. And then if you have to go off of that, then you have withdrawal symptoms there. All right, so some of the different types of drugs, anesthetics that causes numbness. You've got general anesthesia, and local anesthesia, local. You have analgesics, those relieve pain without deadening the sense of touch. Non-narcotics like Tylenol, Motrin, and narcotics, which could cause addiction, but would need to be limited with a doctor, and that kind of thing. Let's see here. Inhalants are things that are snorted or brought into, usually through the nose. Some types of drugs are smoked, illegal drugs. There, most frequently used illegal drug would be marijuana. And then the difference between a stimulant speeds up everything, depressant slows it down. And the most common stimulant that's an illegal drug we've been talking about was cocaine. Then the impure form, or the expensive form, would be considered crack cocaine. All right, so that was what we talked a little bit about yesterday. And today we're going to talk about another harmful stimulant is nicotine. And nicotine is found, of course, in cigarettes. And people smoke cigarettes. And there's so much scientific knowledge now on why you should not smoke. And there's just numerous studies. It's a carcinogen, which means it causes cancer. They have proved that. They know for sure that smoking can cause cancer. And so that's number one reasons to not even ever begin or think about it. Um, and of course, it's addictive. And there's all kinds of other things, as far as it makes your skin not look good, and it looks dry and kind of wrinkly. Discolors your teeth. Those are things that are just kind of like aesthetics. And then also, it it causes people to not be social, because nowadays it's not accepted for people to smoke anywhere. So they have to go outside in the freezing cold, or they have to go somewhere else in the freezing cold. And it makes people smell not so great. When someone walks in the room and they've been smoking, you know it. I don't look down my nose at people that do smoke, because it's kind of like anything, a lot of other things that we do. It is an addiction, and some people may have food addiction, and they struggle with keeping their body healthy because they eat too much or something like that. So um, I don't really judge them. I'm just wanting you all to realize, and pretty much any of your family members, if you have someone that smokes in your family, they would tell you, don't start. Because most of them, if not all of them, want to quit. it's just so hard for them, and it's so difficult for them to quit. And most of the time, especially grandparents and that kind of thing, they didn't know all of this information that we have today about why it's so bad for you and all of that. So you have that information now, so you should definitely know not to ever even think about it, basically. This would be my caffeine. Um, which probably isn't the best thing for you either. They say 1 cup is okay, and that's, usually what I have every day, but still, I don't know. When I teach this lesson, I feel a little guilty about that caffeine. Um, so nicotine, of course, is a poison. It's also used in insecticides. And like I said, it's a stimulant, which is speeding up your heart rate, speeding up your blood pressure, all of those things you don't want that to do. Um, and tar. Tar is also in cigarettes, and that's a substance that causes the cancer. It coats your lungs, basically, and so that's, of course, not good for you. All right, so something else that has in there, carbon monoxide. Well, we have carbon monoxide detectors in our house, a lot of us, and it's made, it's like a poison. And now it's not carbon dioxide, which is actually, we don't want that in our bodies either. That's why our bodies get rid of them. But carbon monoxide, it replaces some of the oxygen cells in your body and causes your brain cells to die, usually there. So, just pour it in, maybe a little more. She's bringing me some. You want to say hi to 6th grade?
Hi, 6th grade.
Yeah, that's Brooke. And then, so sometimes people can also suffer from what they call secondhand smoke. And I've even had a friend that passed away. She had cancer because of secondhand smoke. Her mother smoked, didn't realize that it was bad back in the day. And so whenever she grew up, her mom smoked all the time in the house and around. And so she ended up with lung cancer and passed away. And that was because they believe because of the secondhand smoke that she was exposed to when she was young. And they say it can be harmful, of course, both to smokers and to the people that are around them as well. And now we've got this thing, it's not in the book because it's just a little bit newer, um, vaping. And there are a lot of studies that are coming out nowadays with the vaping. They say that it can cause cancer. It's not proven yet, so we'll see how when they do that. It, of course, gives, again, that appearance of evil that we talked about in the last lesson. Just avoid all appearance of evil. And that's what the Bible tells us. It is very plain on that, there. And so that's one way to just avoid that appearance. And but also it does. They're coming up with all kinds of scientific studies as that it can be more damaging to your lungs than even smoking. So stay away from that stuff too. Then you also have smokeless tobacco, and that would be chewing tobacco or snuff. Now, you see that a lot around this area. You see people chewing tobacco. That's the chopped leaves, and it kind of is pressed into a cake, basically, like a little round. Well, no, that one's not the round. That's usually a pouch. But anyway, and they basically take it, a plug or a piece of it, and they put it in between their cheek and their gums there. And I have had a friend that would tell you he had cancer in his mouth and down halfway into his throat. And so, and he didn't even do it for that long. But basically, why people do that is because they're getting that stimulant, that nicotine, and it goes right into your bloodstream. And with your gums and your mucous membrane, it takes it right into your bloodstream. And so that's why people do that often. Um, Number one, it's gross. It's so gross, in my opinion. Um, but to watch somebody spit that brown, gross stuff out, who knows where, that's not okay. But also, it's not good for you. So Again, the stimulant, the nicotine, all of those things, it has a lot of chemicals in it. But then it also is known, I mean, it says it right on the package that it can cause cancer. Um, and it's addictive. So we want to get rid of that. So the chewing tobacco and the snuff is like a finely ground tobacco and leaves, and that's in the little, like, kind of like a little, I don't know what the word is, but like a little dip is what they call that. They can pinch it and put it between their lower lip and their cheek, or sometimes they'll even inhale it, snuff it basically. So all of those are not good things to do. So those were stimulants that we talked about, and make sure you read these pages because it really does give you a lot more information as to why and what it does to your body. When you do that true false section, you just have to write true or false. You're welcome. And then alcohol. Alcohol is different. It's a depressant. It slows everything down. It slows their reaction time. It slows their thought process. It slows the blood pressure and your breathing rate and your heart rate. It slows everything down. And all of it basically gives you a dreamy, floaty feeling for a certain amount of time. And the alcohol in alcoholic drinks is a colorless liquid known as ethanol or ethyl alcohol. And it's made from grains like barley, rye, corn, some other fruits, depends on what kind there. And yeast, molds, bacteria are added to it to cause fermentation and to cause that to become truly like alcohol. And it depends on, like beer would be from grain or something like that. Some of the hard liquors is what they're called. Those are like fermented juice, usually of certain things. It just depends on the type. Um, Comparing those alcohols, beer is like 4 to 5% alcohol. Wine is about 12% of alcohol, but what they call hard liquor, which is in mixed drinks and all of that kind of stuff. Like vodka is 37% alcohol. So you understand why some people think that it's okay to have a certain kind but not another or something like that. It's because of the amount that's in it. But again, we can even go to scripture for some of that. And wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is a fool. And of course, sometimes it talks about wine in the Bible. A lot of preachers talk about how that would just be fruit of the vine. I'm not a scholar, so I can't really get into Bible scholar. I'm not going to get into all of that. But I have chosen to never have alcohol in my life because I say, if in doubt, don't. And I choose to not do that. I've never had anything like that. I mean, unless it's in medicine or something like that. But also, um, you hear so many different alcohol related deaths. Maybe a man beating his wife or beating his children, maybe walking out and stumbling and falling down the stairs and killing himself. Um, other Some of them kill themselves or mix them with drugs and alcohol, and that kills them. Sometimes also, of course, people go out driving and they think that they're okay, and they're not, and they end up killing innocent people out there on the roads. All of that should make you want to never have to worry about it. Some people, they take a drink and they just take a drink and they don't need any more. But you don't know if you're going to be an alcoholic, and if you um, would just stay away from that very first drink, and you'll never become an alcoholic. So that's just for free there. All right, so alcohol in the bloodstream, you've read a little bit about that, and talks about how alcohol replaces some of the stuff in your blood. And so it helped you to see the damage to your body that alcohol can do, but also to your liver. Sort of, that's one of the biggest things that they talk about, and how alcoholism can cause severe damage to your liver. So it talks about the alcohol's effects on your brain, accidents, how It's not necessarily a disease. And so I want you to read all that. Make sure you get that in your mind there. And so we talk about all of this in a very brief manner, comparatively speaking to what we normally would if we were in the classroom. And also, of course, I tell you all the time to talk to your parents about that. Ask them to help you see um, some of the effects and the problems that go along with all of that. And of course, it talks about on page 135 if you determine in your heart and mind, not just in sixth grade, but each and every year, because you may not think about it at all in sixth, seventh through 12th grade, and then you go to college or something, and a lot of your friends are doing that, and then you begin to have that temptation there. So it's something you pray about continually. It's something that you determine in your heart and your mind that you don't want to do. And that will help you. And of course, having a healthy body, we've been talking about that all throughout health this quarter and last some. And it helps you to see not only can you have a healthy body by eating properly, balanced meals and that kind of thing, exercising regularly, drinking lots of water, getting plenty of rest, say no to drugs and alcohol. We've talked about all of that, right? Also, you want to keep your spirit healthy, all right? Your spirit and your soul healthy. And of course, the dictionary defines spirit as the part of you that controls your mind. And you want to be able to, in order to keep your spirit healthy, you want to read your Bible daily, all right, daily, and pray daily. And right now, whenever you're at home, um, so much more than what we ever have been, this is a good time to establish habits like that if you haven't already. There's really good little devotional books. Sometimes your youth pastors will supply those. And if you don't know, you could ask me or you can ask your youth pastor, someone like that, to help you find a little devotional book. If not, you can just always just find some good reading in the Bible. I like Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians in particular, but also Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to read. Don't worry so much about reading lots of verses, especially if you're like me and you have a hard time comprehending what you read sometimes. The better way, in my opinion, is to just get something out of a few verses. Maybe you'll start off with 5 or 10 verses and write down what you get out of it. And then go on from there. And, it depends. You can talk to your parents, your youth pastor, and they'll help you get started on that. But right now is a great time to get started on that and to be able to establish a really good habit of Bible reading, devotionals, and then also prayer. And you pray every day. You pray. You can do it in the morning and at night, both, obviously. And put maybe on your phones if you have phones or on your computers, or just maybe make a little list in a notebook. Some prayer requests, and then you can mark them off whenever they get answered too. That's of course a good spiritual health exercise there. All right, and then of course going to church, and of course right now we go to church online, and so it's easier than ever. Some of you maybe struggle because maybe your parents couldn't take you or something at times. Now it's super easy to be able to get online and go to church. But then whenever we stop that, don't forget and bug your parents to take you to church if they don't already. And then of course good fellowship with your friends, good Christian friends. Surround yourself with good Christian friends, and not the kind that would lead you in a different path, a different way. All right, and keep your spirit clean by trying your hardest to not sin. And when you do, to ask for forgiveness and you talk with your parents and talk with the Lord, and that will help your spirit to be healthy, which is more important even than all the other stuff that we've been talking about. So make sure you read all of those things. And let's see here. You have worksheet 11 coming up, and you have to do that one for a grade. send me a picture of that. But then I also included worksheet 10 in your on Teams. And you can do that one for bonus if you want to do that one, or it's just going to help you. It's more of the earlier chapters. So it's just going to help you as you get ready to take this final. Your final exam will be open book. But sometimes you'll understand, sometimes it's much faster and easier if you study a little bit first for that open book test. So then you're not like, oh, I don't know, and you're looking and your test takes all day long to take. So there's no study guide this time, just your final exam. And I'll get that. That will be on Teams as well. All right, so I hope you have a great summer, and hopefully I get to see you guys soon. I miss you.